welcome to the Church York Open Week. So here, you can be still coming in, get yourself some lunch and find a seat. And I know some people are joining us online, so those of you who are joining us online, I'm afraid you can't have lunch. Well, you can have your own lunch. But if you come another day, you will be. So this is the first time we've done one of these, and the idea is that we are putting things on every day from now till Friday, and then obviously we've got our services on Sunday. And the idea is we're just putting out in the open what we always talk about, which is why Jesus is very good news indeed, why he is exactly what this world needs. We've got a particular focus this week, which is really riffing on some words of Jesus, gaining the world and losing our souls. Jesus said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? And there are quite a lot of ways in which the country in which we live now feels a little bit like that. We've got so much, and yet perhaps it looks like we've lost our souls. So the format's very simple. These lunchtime sessions, we are going to be, it's going to be a 15-minute talk, so it's a kind of a quick fire. Because I know some people are here in their lunch break and need to get back to work, so that is so it's quick, about 15 minutes. There's food here, feel absolutely free, so just munch away while we are while we're in progress. That's fine. There's no hurry to leave afterwards, but obviously you can leave as soon as you need to. The 15 minutes, Ed's going to speak to us today, and then we can take questions after that if people want to, and you can stay as long as you like, but feel free to leave when you want to. And then our evening lectures, a little bit different format, so that's 7:30 every evening from today till Friday, and whereas these lunchtime ones are on introducing Jesus, so just looking straightforward at him and why he's good news. In the evening we're looking at particular big issues that are going on in our society. So tonight we're looking at forgetting who we are, the great secular identity disaster. That is a big question of, well, we think we know all about identity, and yet actually that's a much more problematic concept, and I think we're discovering that than we thought it was. We're going to look at how Jesus gives us our lives back that often we thought we'd lost. Anyway, that's enough for me. Please do come to some of those other things, and I'm going to hand straight over to Ed Rouse. Come and speak to us.
My name's Ed. Good to see you all. This lunchtime we're going to be thinking about Jesus, the man like no other. And there's all sorts of things that can be said about why Jesus is unlike anyone else. And I want to point out three of them to us from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 3. So there's a Bible on your chair. Please open up to Matthew chapter 3, which is on page 808. I didn't check the Bible with a stripe, but the Bible was without a stripe. It's page 808. And Matthew chapter 3. In Matthew chapter 3, Matthew is recording that John the Baptist was preaching in the wilderness in Judea and Israel. This was about 2,000 years ago. And at least in part, a major theme of his message was a message of judgment. That God is angry with people's sin and disobedience, the things that they're doing wrong, that are evil. And it says in verse 5 of chapter 3 verse 5, the little number 5 there, it says, "Then Jerusalem and all Judea and all the region about the Jordan were going out to him, and they were baptized by him in the river Jordan, confessing their sins." Now, baptism, symbolically, is a bit like having a bath on the inside. People were, in other words, coming in there confessing their sins, and they were saying, I need a wash on the inside. And I wonder if you've ever felt like that. That feeling that we have done things and said things and wanted things that make us dirty within. These people were coming and they were confessing that that was true of them. They'd done things wrong and they were being baptized. It was a sign of what they needed. In other words, this little passage was a bit like a national failures convention. So you've heard about the Comic-Cons, the comic conventions and the Hornby Train Collectors Convention. This was a failures convention. John the Baptist was saying judgment was coming, and people from all around the place were coming and saying, I failed. I need a wash within, or I am doomed. Now in verse 13, it says, Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to John to be baptized by him. And verse 14, John says, would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? And this is the first thing I want us to see about Jesus, that Jesus is good. Jesus is good. John says, you, Jesus, you don't belong here. If anything, the prophet, I'm a failure. I need to be washed by you. You don't need to be washed by me. And Jesus is perfectly good. And it's one of the most striking things that we read from the gospel accounts. There's a little joke that you read the Gospels and you read about how Jesus was, and you think, not this is too good to be true, but this was too good to be made up. I don't know, the difficult situations that you come to in life and you think, I have no idea what the right thing is to do in this situation. You read about Jesus and he does the right thing in the most difficult situations again and again and again. In Jesus Christ, you find a man in whom all the virtues perfectly combine. He was as brave as a lion. He went to Jerusalem, though he knew the authorities there wanted to kill him. And he walked into the temple and he overthrew the tables of the very people who were going to murder him because they were being hypocrites. And yet at the same time, often with brave men, you find that they are sometimes quite callous and hard. Jesus was as gentle as a lamb. Little children would run up to him and he would bless them. Women did not feel threatened by him, but safe in his presence, knowing he would never use them. Jesus had great authority. Huge crowds would listen to him, and they would say, no one has ever spoken like this. And yet he also had great humility. He would wash his disciples' feet. He was fiercely loyal to God, to the law, but at the same time, he was the most free man who's ever lived. He did not care one jot what anyone thought of him. He was caring, but not weak. He was wise, but not aloof. He was extravagantly kind to the broken and marginalized. He loved his enemies and prayed for those who killed him, and yet he was not afraid to criticize those who were arrogant and self-righteous. There's a time which makes me chuckle, but he asked his worst enemies in front of his best friends, can any of you accuse me of sin? And it's just amusing because you think about, well, what would happen if I did that? If I went up to my worst enemies in front of my best friends, or like my wife, and particularly about my wife, but I said, can any of you accuse me of sin? And my wife, I wouldn't be worried about my enemies, but worried about my wife. She was like, well, let me tell you about it. She would have a field day. But these people could think of nothing. There was nothing evil about Jesus. And we sort of know this. I used to spend quite a bit of time talking to people on the street about Jesus, and people would say that Christians are bad. They would say that Christianity is bad, but they would never say that Jesus was bad. I never heard one person say that Jesus was bad. Everyone said he was a good man. This was the National Failures Convention. Jesus turned up 2,000 years ago, and John said, you don't belong here. And it's true. The world is crying out for good men. Jesus is the good man. And that's the first way in which he's like no other. He was perfect. He was a good man. Secondly, he is God. Or to be more precise, he is the Son of the Father. Jesus insisted on being baptized, and Matthew records for us what happened when he was. Verse 16 it says, and when Jesus was baptized, immediately he went up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming to rest on him. In verse 17 it says, and behold, a voice from heaven said, this is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. This is perhaps the most crucial thing to see about Jesus. Why is Jesus a man like no other? Well, because he's not just a man. He is the Son of the Father. Christians worship the triune God, the one God who has forever existed in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we worship him because God the Son came to live among us and showed us that is who he is. In the person of Jesus Christ, God became man. And when he was baptized, the Father declared to the world, this is my Son. This is my boy. I love him, and I am pleased with him. Now you may be wondering, is that true? And I doubt I can convince you in so short a time, but this is one of the points of his miracles. Like, why does he go around and do all these amazing things? And people hear about what he did and you think, that's impossible, and to which you want to come to respond, well, that is the point. He did things that weren't possible for a mere man to do, so that you might know that he is not merely a man. He calmed storms, he gave sight to the blind and hearing to the deaf, he drove out demons and healed the sick. He gave life to the dead, so that we might know that he was the one who gave life to us and to all things in the beginning. It's clearly who he knew himself to be. People say that Jesus never claimed to be God, and you want to ask, well, have you read the Gospels? He never said in so many words, I am God. But he said things like, before Abraham was, I am. A friend said to him, show us the Father. And he said, don't you know me? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. He said so many outrageous things, the Jews kept trying to stone him. C.S. Lewis, a thinker of the 20th century, a great Christian thinker, he put it like this. He said, if you go to Buddha and say, Buddha, are you Brahma? He says, you are still under the veil of illusion. If you go to Socrates and say, are you Zeus? He laughs at you and says, don't be so stupid. If you go to Muhammad and say, are you Allah? Muhammad tears his clothes and chops off your head. If you go to Jesus and say, are you God? He says, I am. When he was baptized, the Father proclaimed from heaven, this is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. And that makes Jesus the most important person in your life. People are important because of their relation to us. A husband and a wife, a child and a parent. These are the relations that define us. But Jesus is the one who defined you. He made you. He gives you life moment by moment. He will judge you and send you to heaven or hell. He is your God, the Son of the Father. So 2 things so far. He is good, he is God. And then thirdly, he came to bring us to God. If you want another G, he is gracious. So Jesus turns up at the National Failures Convention. John the Baptist was preaching judgment is coming. People came saying, we have failed and we deserve that judgment. And Jesus the judge turns up. He is God. He is the judge of the living and the dead. What does he do? Well, he doesn't smite them. He is baptized. Baptism, if you remember, is an image of being washed. So to run with the picture, it's like all these people have come and had their evil deeds washed off into the Jordan River. And then Jesus comes along, this perfect man, and is baptized into that filthy water. And it's an image of what he would do in all of his life. He would take what is ours so that he could give us what is his. He came to take our sin that we might have his perfect righteousness. He came to share in our misery that we may share in his joy. He came to take the judgment of God that we deserve, that we might know the love of God that he deserves. In short, in Jesus Christ, God became a man to bring mankind to God. Back at the 2012 Olympics, there was a man called Chad Leclos who won the 200-meter butterfly. A South African guy. And if you saw it, you remember this. The BBC interviewed his dad, who's called Bert. And it was a really lovely moment of the Olympics because basically Bert was so overcome with pride that he couldn't answer any of the interviewer's questions. He just kept saying, it's unbelievable, unbelievable. He said, I've never been so pleased in my life. He's unbelievable. And then he said, he's the most down-to-earth, beautiful boy you'll ever meet in your life. Look at him. He's crying like me. I love you. Look at him. I love him. It was really lovely. But that is like the smallest image of the Father's love for his Son. They have shared eternal joy. Jesus came so that if we trust him, we might not face the judgment of God that we deserve, but know that love, the love of the Father for the Son, forevermore. Jesus is the man like no other. He is good, he is God, he is gracious, and the rest of the week we'll be hearing more about all of that. But that is all I have to say for now. Please do come back. Matthew, do you want to take questions?
You can take that.
I can take questions. I'll refer you to Matthew if you ask any really difficult ones.
Would anyone like to ask a question? I'll start with a simple one. Just explain what being baptised would have looked like.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have done that. Being baptised, John the Baptist would have been in the Jordan River, people would have come to him, he would have then dumped them under the water of the river and then brought them back out again. And it's a symbol of being washed on the inside. It's also a symbol of being changed. You go into the water of living an old life, you come out and you're going to live a new life now. So that's what baptism is.
So you already mentioned this a little bit, but why did Jesus need to be baptized if he didn't have any sin?
Well, that's a good question. So it wasn't because he needed a wash, but it's a symbol of what he would do for his people. He goes through, as it were, everything that an evil person deserving of God's wrath goes through, so that in a sense we are saved from the reality that it symbolises. So we deserve death and hell for our sin. The baptism, in a sense, is a picture of what he would go on to do on the cross. Does that make any sense? Would you want to add anything, Matthew?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. It's in other words, it's saying he's going what we're going through. So that we can be saved.
Got time for a couple more? Anyone's got any other questions they want to ask? If not, we will call it